Okay, I'll take roll call to establish quorum. Commissioner Whedon,
Present.
Commissioner or Vice Chair Van Rice,
Here.
Commissioner Liu,
Yeah.
Chair Mayan,
Here.
Commissioner Nee.
Yep.
And Commissioner Nee is attending virtually today, so let the record show that. And Commissioner Hecht is absent. We have a quorum.
All right. So first item, any public comment on items not on the agenda? Until I think Chloe would be one of them, and Glenda and Gary, you're for.
Yeah.
Is it not on the agenda item?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We can start with Chloe.
I come and stand for the podium. Yep. You have 3 minutes. Good.
Yep.
But
Chloe.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe Chenong. I've been a Los Angeles resident my whole life. And for the past 4 months, I've been circulating surveys in the efforts to establish a electric community shuttle. And so I started sharing this surveys with my self-defense community downtown. Then I talked to my school community. I attend school in Palo Alto, but there are some in Southeast residents, and so I wanted to help gauge their interest. And they also spread that survey to their friends that go to like West Office High and Mountain View High. And then I reached out to the town crier, and I was actually able to be interviewed and featured, and this allowed me to get more traction from that. However, it still wasn't that much. I ended up only getting like maybe 5 survey responses after being featured in the town crier. And so my friend Maria Bautista from the Preservation Action League of Los Altos reached out to me and let me know that having an electric community shuttle was actually part of you guys' climate action plan. And so that's why I thought to reach out to you guys and get help from the city council and from the environmental commission. And so I've been meeting with Rashina to she's been helping to revise my survey and make it more comprehensive so that this could actually be used, this data that's collected could actually be used to create like a shuttle that will serve the needs and be efficient. So I still need help circulating my improved survey and still need help with revising it. And so I just want to let you guys know that I'm here to work for it. And I take public transit in Los Angeles, and I know the schedules. I know where there can be connections or where we can limit overlaps. And so I want to work with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chloe. All right, we have Glenda Chang. Oh, we have Gary Heaven.
Good evening. I'm Gary Head, Los Altos resident. I'm mentoring 3 interns this summer on a Greentown project. It's called Creating Sustainable Urban Landscapes. We had a kickoff meeting on Monday, talked about where that might be headed, and I think it's going to end up being an interesting report. We will make that presentation July 17th. That's a Thursday, and probably in this room. You will all be invited. We won't be coming to a July meeting, of course, this is what happened. I'd like the interns to come up here and just introduce themselves so you get to see who they are. But that's what we're working on. The 2 of my interns are here. Luke is closing up the shop at recovery. It might be a little late. But
We do have an agenda item for the interns to speak then. Is that a better time for them to
I
speak?
didn't notice that.
If you just have to introduce yourselves, that's fine. But I think, I thought we were in the agenda. Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm saying is, if you wanna sit down and have, tell us more about what you're doing, maybe you can take that time. It is the second on the agenda. So we'll have a presentation from Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And then we'll have
I think the students would like to just say a few words now.
okay, go ahead.
Be on our way.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Hutch Wardall. I'm a rising senior. And my interest in the environment really started growing up here in Los Altos my whole life around the redwoods. I've been able to work with a company called I8 in Mountain View and Sunnyvale to use data from traffic and public park cameras in order to make safer public parks for pedestrians and cyclists. And I'm also working on a project designing food forests and community gardens for Habitat for Humanity. So I'm really excited to work with Greentown and promote sustainable urban development in Los Altos.
Hi everyone, I'm Sonali Srinivasan. I'm a writing senior at Los Altos. I'm part of our skills green team. I've been involved in environmental efforts since probably middle school when I founded our first environmental club. I'm part of SBYCA, which is an organization run by youth to help create initiatives to help actually learn your code and your energy something. So happy coincidence. Yeah, and this summer I'll be working with Gary. And our project is basically, I'm sure you know a little bit about it, but our project is to create a plan and become more sustainability and more of natural habitat and wildlife and plant and stuff to ourselves.
And then the third person, Luke, who's not here, he's just as good as they are, and they're great. One final parting thought, do you have any links or information that would be useful to us? Send them, and then if you have any thoughts about what you might want to get out of our work this summer, that's what those are too. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. All right, then we have Glenda Chang from Greentown
We
Los
have
Altos.
a little bit more time, so perhaps we could just wait for the agenda part.
Okay, you're also gonna be
Yes.
talking about that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so no more public comments on items not on the agenda. Oh. Yeah. Maybe we should have taken that public comment later. All right, so then we have meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve meeting minutes?
I actually found just a nitpicking issue, I think, on the description of who was working on what. Don was in the working pair for the building electrification, which is obviously not the case. It's Tom and myself. So we might want to get that updated.
Okay, noted. Any other edits to the minutes?
I have a couple suggestions. One is, in the minutes refers to Greentown. I think it'd be better to say Greentown Los Altos to be more specific about the organization. I think it appears twice in the minutes, in the draft minutes. And the other thing is the working pair that Colm just referred to is referred to residential building electrification, building home electrification, and residential electrification in draft minutes. In other words, it's called three different things, and I suggest that we choose one and stick with it.
Okay, that's something I can talk to the working group about. And then I can update the minutes based on that.
While we're nitpicking, my name's spelled slightly wrong.
Okay.
Didn't catch that.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
With those comments, I'll approve I'll move the approval of the minutes with those revisions.
Okay, second. Okay, we have to take a vote individually, since we have someone on Zoom. So Commissioner Nee,
Approved
approve the minutes with
with the revisions. Yeah.
revisions. Yeah.
Yes.
Commissioner Whedon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Rees,
Yes.
Commissioner Wu,
yes.
Chair Huang.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved with the revisions.
All right, so then we have. Oh, I have the wrong agenda. Then we have two presentations from outside organizations today, and First up, we'll invite Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Tony, maybe you will introduce. Yep, its subject and the speakers.
Yeah, so we have Silicon Valley Clean Energy SVCE presenting today, and we have Leanna and Jessamine who will be giving the presentation, and I'll hand it over to them to give a brief introduction.
Great. Thank you so much, Tanya, and thank you, Commission, for having us here to talk about new support for building electrification. My name is Leanna Huynh. I'm a program lead at Silicon Valley Clean Energy, leading our direct install programs. I'll pass it over to Jessamine to introduce herself really quickly before we jump into the slides.
Yeah, Jessamine Allen with SVCE, also working on single-family residential electrification. And thank you for the invitation to present.
Great. Cool. So today we're here to talk about 3 new offerings that have recently launched. The Full Service Home Upgrades Program, our Emergency Water Heater Replacement Program, and our Zero Interest Financing Pilot. So first, just to begin, kind of like, why did we create these programs? And so through data and experiences from SVCE, state and regional programs, we know there continue to be barriers to decarbonizing single family homes. And these can generally be boiled down to the 3 C's: cost, convenience, and contractors. So with cost, a lot of folks can't upfront the high upfront costs, even with enhanced rebates. Heat pump HVAC projects and heat pump water heater projects continue to be within the tens of thousands of dollars. For convenience, a lot of families are really busy. They want to make these improvements, but it's just not a priority. And then lastly, for folks who are really motivated, finding contractors who are reliable and trusted has also presented a barrier. And so to address these barriers and meet our decarb goals, SVCE created the Full Service Home Upgrades Program. This direct install program helps single family customers go all electric at fixed pricing with the help of an SVCE contractor. And so this $10 million program aims to fully electrify 600 households, including 250 low-income households. We aim to do this by April of 2027. And so what this program offers is no-cost installation for low-income customers and turnkey installation for market rate customers who pay for the final project costs after all rebates are applied. Our lead consultant is Franklin Energy. They will provide the overall project management and incentive support. Also on a team is Zero Home. They are a software tool that helps provide some of the energy and bill savings calculations. Ultimately, with our recommended upgrades, we don't want to create an unintended consequence of increasing folks' energy bills. And so their support is really helpful in helping us scope projects to ensure that we're not unintentionally doing this. And then lastly, we have 3 local contractors who will be paid prevailing wage for these installations. And this is really important to note because state law doesn't actually require single family installations to pay prevailing wage, and SVCE has opted to do this to ensure workers are compensated fairly. And so we soft launched this program in mid-November, and during the soft launch, we have not been heavily promoting the program. We really wanted to make sure that we fine-tune the program processes with just a handful of projects, and that we're scoping projects correctly, and that our processes and systems are working as intended. And so customers can go online to our website right here and email and call our number or get referrals from our Go Electric advisor to get connected with the program. One of the goals of this program is to make the customer experience and journey as easy and as seamless as possible. So this is a high-level overview of the journey from the customer's perspective. So first, the customer will go online to sign up for a no-cost assessment. That connects them with our energy advisor, who then goes out to the home and looks at all the existing appliances and identifies opportunities for electrification. If the customer wants to make these upgrades, then a partner contractor is sent to get permits and install the equipment at fixed prices. After the installation, the customer only pays for the project cost after rebates. Again, that reduces the upfront cost to them. And then eligible customers who are income qualified don't have a cost contribution. Afterwards, we'll support the customer in enrolling in our ELEC rate so that they can see the savings of installing their electric technologies. And then lastly, once they shift their usage to off-peak times, they can see additional savings on their bills. And so this is a high-level overview. In the next few slides, I'm going to go into detail at kind of like what happens at each of these steps. And so to start to be eligible, the customer needs to meet all these requirements. They need to reside in SVC territory. They have to be a single family home with 4 or fewer units. They need to legally own the property. We will allow upgrades in renter occupied homes, but again, the property owner must apply. And then to participate in the program, they need to install heat pump water heater, heat pump HVAC as a part of their planned upgrades. And so the first step is to schedule a home assessment. So the video that I'm playing on the right is just to demonstrate how easy it is to, complete our intake form, go through the series of eligibility questions that essentially helps filter them into the no cost upgrade option or the market rate option. And then once they've scheduled their assessment online, they will get a confirmation email with their appointment details on how to prepare for the assessment. So that kind of looks like this. And then afterwards, we send an energy advisor from Franklin to do the in-home visit. They walk through the entire home to identify opportunities for upgrades. And this visit usually lasts about an hour to an hour and a half. If the customer is income qualified, then the energy advisor also reviews their income documents to confirm that the customer is actually qualified. And essentially at the end of the walkthrough, the customer is presented with this home upgrade proposal, which details all the recommended upgrades, including all the rebates that they're eligible for. And we also have 2 Spanish-speaking energy advisors so that Spanish-speaking customers can receive this proposal and assessment in Spanish. So what's included in the home upgrade proposal? So we offer whole home upgrade recommendations. So that's everything from heat pump HVAC, heat pump water heater, induction stoves, dryers, efficiency such as attic insulation, air sealing, and then also health and safety. So we offer asbestos remediation for homes that have asbestos and need that to be removed in order to support the electrification upgrades. And we have a sample proposal on our website, and it's also linked here in the slides. One of the key features of this program is that we offer standardized fixed pricing, so there's no hidden fees or surprises. And so each home might be different in what they might need to upgrade and the level of modification, but we've pre-negotiated all this pricing, so it's simple and upfront. And customers can go onto our pricing webpage here to see the list of most common measures and their estimated incentives. And we always encourage our customers to get multiple quotes. This program might not be the best fit for them in terms of pricing. And so this is intended really to help customers figure out their options. And again, customers will only pay for the cost after all eligible rebates. And so that might include any SVCE, tech, Energy Smart Homes, and other programs as they become available. And then once the customer decides they want to move forward, they'll sign a participation agreement. The agreement includes all our terms and conditions for participating, including any renter protections for renter occupied homes. Next, the contractor will reach out to the customer to get permits and install the equipment. We offer a select list of standard equipment from certain manufacturers. So, if a customer is really intent on a certain type of equipment, this program might not be the best fit for them. And then after the installation, market rate customers pay for the cost after rebates, and all our installations are backed by a 1-year standard parts and labor warranty. And then after the installation, the Franklin team will apply for all rebates on behalf of the customer. So that takes a lot of administrative effort off their plates. We'll provide educational materials to help customers make the switch to our ELEC or more electrification friendly rate. And then we'll send out a 6-month survey afterwards to better understand the customer's satisfaction with the installed equipment. So that pretty much concludes kind of the full service home upgrades offering. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk through our emergency water heater element, which is very similar to the full service program, but it's really intended for customers who want to switch to a heat pump water heater when their water heater fails. So we get this inquiry a lot, like what happens when a gas water heater fails and I don't have the infrastructure to be able to upgrade to a heat pump water heater right away. And so with that, we are offering this program that provides a 24-hour hotline for customers to call during these emergency situations, and we will help them restore hot water within 48 hours. And so oftentimes that means we can install the heat pump water heater right away, but if we can't, then we'll give them a loaner so that they're not without hot water while we make the other upgrades necessary. And again, this program is provided at no cost to customers that are income eligible. And so customers can sign up for the service by calling this number right here and learning more about our program on our website or emailing the same email that was for the full service program. We have the same implementers, as I mentioned. However, in this case, Fuse leads all the emergency water heater calls so that we can provide faster service to customers. And Franklin provides the rebate and incentive support. And again, the customer journey for the full service, for the emergency water heater pathway is very closely similar to the full service one. The customer contacts us, letting us know that they have a failing water heater. The contractor schedules a visit within 48 hours to restore the hot water service. They'll install the heat pump water heater if they can within that time frame. And if they can't, then they'll install a loaner water heater. At the end, the customer pays for any of the contributions. And then if they haven't upgraded their HVAC system, we'll refer them to our full service home upgrades program to get them fully electrified. And so what's next for the program? We are still learning a lot during our soft launch phase. We're working out the kinks. We're refining our program processes. We plan to hard launch in summer of 2025, where we'll promote the program a lot more and try to get more customers enrolled in the program. We have also been working on Spanish materials. As I mentioned, we have Spanish-speaking energy advisors who can support customers through the process, but we also want to give them the proposal and all of the materials, including transactional emails in Spanish, so that there's an end-to-end full experience in Spanish. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about both of these programs. I'm going to pass it on to Jessamine now to talk about zero interest financing.
Thank you, Leanna. So I'll be talking about a new program. It's technically a pilot that we've recently launched. And I'll be sharing kind of what, details on the program. If you're interested, the website is listed here. And literally just went live a week or two ago. Next slide, please. So to Leanna's earlier point about how upfront cost for electrification upgrades is a common barrier that we see, and we look at kind of what resources are available to help customers bridge that gap. So increasingly, we see direct install programs offering 100% cost coverage for low income residents. Historically, we've seen incentives like rebates and tax credits tend to benefit or be used more by higher income households, even kind of more conventional finance. Loans through banks still tend to be used predominantly by higher income households. So there's this gap in the middle. A lot of the time we're focused on kind of middle or moderate income households that we think aren't served well by existing programs and financial resources. And so this is where we believe on-bill financing can provide a accessible form of financing for electrification upgrades. This is where there is a investment or a loan issued to the customer, and then the customer repays that loan on their utility bill. These financing programs have also historically had very high repayment rates, and so they're also seen as more kind of secure forms of financing. So next slide, please. So as we think about what happens with a typical electrification project, this is a very simple example of a simple heat pump water heater costing $5,500. While there are some depends on the year or time of year and what rebates are available. There may be rebates available that can cover a good portion of the project cost, but it's important to note that the customer still has to go out of pocket for that entire cost and then maybe get reimbursed later with the rebate, leaving, in this example, a $2,500 copay that they must cover. Next slide, please. We're looking at a form of on-bill financing where we're still leveraging those rebates that are available. We're also applying them kind of directly upfront to the project cost. This is what Leanna mentioned that we're already going to be doing, well, we're already doing in our full service program. So we're still taking that same approach with these projects. So we reduce the project cost first by applying and for any incentives are available. Then we add a layer of financing to further reduce that customer copay or that upfront out-of-pocket cost. And uniquely, what we're trying to do is limit the amount we are financing to the bill savings achieved by the project. So this example, over a heat pump water heater kind of lifetime, the customer was estimated to save approximately $1,900. We take kind of what our approach is to say, well, we'll finance 80% of those bill savings towards the project. So 80% of that 1,900 is 1,500. So that would set the amount that we would finance on a per project basis. And the idea is that the customer will see bill savings, which decreases their bill. Then we have this on-bill repayment cost to repay the loan. The net impact should be bill neutral. So we're not making it harder for the customer to pay their electric bill moving forward. And they have the benefit of the home upgrade and a lower upfront copayment if one is even necessary. So next slide, please. So this is a on-bill financing pilot. Like I said, this is on bill, so the the repayment charges are recorded and then repaid via the utility bill. It is a loan. It's 0% interest, 10-year terms. The 10-year term is really key to making sure those bill savings are matching the loan repayments so that the net impact is bill neutral. And the goal is to get no to low out-of-pocket cost to the customer, so reducing any of these upfront copays as much as possible. And then, like I said, while there is this on-bill repayment, those payments will be essentially offset by savings across their utility bills associated with that upgrade. So in terms of technologies, obviously we're supporting electrification, so water heating, heat pump space heating and cooling. That's going to be the primary kind of technology that we're incentivizing because it's the one that can deliver bill savings. It's also very important to be pairing energy efficiency. Again, that helps us achieve the bill savings. And then we're also looking at adding some solar and storage to a certain percent of projects, again, because there's kind of more bill savings available to help finance project costs. This pilot will be reaching approximately 200 customers, and these will be single-family homeowners. We're also needing to target people with high bill savings potential because we need to make sure that they can save enough that it's worth, issuing a loan for the project. So we have some analyses that we've done looking at our customer data and the energy usage to identify kind of an eligible list. Ideally, we're also targeting moderate income households. These are the households we think are underserved by, other forms of financing that are already available. And then also importantly, to make sure that those bill savings are achieved during that 10-year repayment term, we want to make sure that the equipment is functioning. So we're currently including full 10-year extended warranties, as well as having support available to the customers throughout that payback term so that one, we can be monitoring, energy usage and making sure that the kind of equipment performs as we originally modeled. And if there are any issues with the equipment or the customer has questions, they have a resource to go to. I will say on-bill financing is not a new concept in California or even the Bay Area. The IOUs currently offer on-bill financing for commercial customers, not for residential, but there have been a couple of CCAs either with past or current on-bill financing programs. So we've reached out to them to learn a lot about how their programs operated and the kind of logistics. But our model for on-bill financing is very different because we are targeting those with the high bill savings potential and restricting the amount we're financing so that the kind of long-term repayment is bill neutral. So next slide, please. Just a kind of very high-level customer journey. Again, before we even kind of consider the loan process, we're starting with a very targeted outreach. So these are people that we've already pre-screened and we think have a high likelihood for significant bill savings. There's some additional filters that we've performed as well to create kind of our eligible customer list. Then if the customer expresses interest, then we go through the process of scoping the project, performing a more detailed financial analysis to refine our bill savings impacts, calculating the amount we would issue in a loan. The measures would be installed, we issue the loan, and then there's this on-bill cost recovery period. So then the customer starts to see the loan repayment charges on their utility bill under the CCA portion of our charges. And there's going to be a significant measurement and verification effort looking at the performance of the equipment, especially kind of 1 year post install, because we need 1 year's worth of data to confirm that our original predictions around bill savings kind of match what we see in the field. And then again, even throughout that full 10-year repayment period, we'll be providing support to help coordinate repairs that fall under warranty, and also if there's any kind of questions or concerns around their bills and whether they're seeing the savings that they thought they were going to see, we have resources to help investigate the issue and remedy if necessary. So next slide, please. So this is a complicated effort. The original kind of motivation behind this program was really associated with a state program. There's TEC, which is a kind of market transformation program. They have a series of grants and pilots to help address the barriers towards heat pump adoption. So there is this pilot effort that we are collaborating with this TEC group, and they provide kind of advisory and code management support as well as bringing financial resources. And then in terms of implementation, this is Franklin Energy. This is the same entity we're working on the full service program with. And so the idea is we are leveraging a lot of that program infrastructure developed with under Leanna, so that we have kind of consistent processes and pricing and familiarity with our programs across kind of no matter which way the customer engages with SVCE. So they are essentially doing everything related to customer acquisition, scoping the projects, and then as well as being available in that 10-year repayment period to provide customer support. So the next slide, please. This is the pilot timeline. This has been a kind of long-term effort that we've been collaborating on for a few years. There's been a lot of planning and analyses done. There's also been engagement in a public utility commission proceeding. Last summer, we went to our board and secured approvals. We just launched the program the other week. Again, this is a very targeted program. So in terms of kind of marketing and outreach, it's going to be a lot of direct contacts through email and mailers, because we really need to work with the people that have the high bill savings potential. And so over the course of the next year, we're aiming to get all these installs completed and begin the cost recovery. And then it is a 10-year term, so we're looking at a kind of 2035 end date for this kind of tranche of participants. Before, of course, before 2035, we're going to be evaluating the performance of this financing program, and so there may be the potential to expand or pivot. So there will be a lot of evaluation in the next year or two to assess kind of the viability of this financing and scalability. And I think that's it on my end. And I believe we can answer any kind of questions related to our programs.
Great, thank you so much. Tanya, I guess we'll turn it back to you to facilitate Q&A.
Yeah, so in the commission process, we'll allow commissioners to ask any like clarifying questions and then take public comment if there are any, and then the commissioners can then ask like more detailed Q&A, or today we can do public comment and then just detailed Q&A. Yeah, so we can do.
Well, I think just so that if there's clarifying questions, then whoever's commenting on it may have.
Okay.
So let's do the clarifying questions first.
I think in general, it's just the Q&A, because usually that's the.
Okay, so
that's
this
the
is because,
discussion.
yeah, so we'll
Yeah,
just
that's
do the
right.
one, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And then just take,
Yeah, is there any public comment on this item?
then we can jump to Q&A.
Okay, all right. Wants to go?
Question for Leanna. What do you project the time when a customer is interested in upgrading to electric appliances, say heat pump, water heater, or HVAC? From the point that they have Franklin Energy Advisor to the cost estimate and things work out, that installation, how much time do you project that it's going to take?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question on timing. For assessments, customers can schedule them within a week. So if they wanted to schedule right now, the soonest they can do is like next Monday. From the assessment to getting like a home proposal, we provide them within 1 to 2 weeks. And that's because some of these initial projects right now, we're reviewing very closely to make sure that they are scoped correctly, since we want to make sure that we don't increase the service capacity at that site. With the electrification projects, we truly believe that most homes can electrify on 100 amps. So we're reviewing scopes really closely. And then if the customer agrees, installation for a single measure, we're anticipating 1 to 2 months. And for multi-measures, we're expecting 2 to 3 months. And that obviously varies with the jurisdiction in terms of permitting, how quickly we can get permits, and how quickly we can like close out final inspection.
Okay.
I have a question, but it's dealing about, the rebates. On your website, I note that, Milpitas and Mountain View have a special tab where they've offered additional incentives, which get back to the offset, costs for people. And the question that I have regarding that is of the 13 member agencies, are there any other agencies in the queue for sweetening the rebates, if you will, if that's the proper term, over and above what Silicon Valley Clean Energy is doing? And the second question is maybe an unfair question at this point, is do you have any experience whether or not that additional rebates has created any additional interest?
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Going electric.
Yeah, so on your first question on what other agencies, we have connected with Los Altos Hills, and they are in conversations with our team in providing that additional heat pump water heater rebate. Right now, even with these city rebates, they aren't included in these customers' proposals. We're actually providing them as a rebate check after the customer has completed the projects, and that's because of the way those city funding programs work. So we're definitely open to exploring other cities who are interested in providing additional incentives. As of right now, we only have one project who has taken advantage of the additional city rebate adders. So I can't really speak to how much that was like a motivator for them. Based on the survey responses that we've collected, it seems like what customers who have explored this program, they were already thinking of rebates, of doing upgrades. And so they found this program. Is kind of what we know about these initial set of customers. And I think as we continue scaling the program and getting more survey responses, we'll get to know a little bit more what their motivations are. But certainly rebates have been, I would say, a motivator overall for customers starting these projects.
I have one follow-on suggestion. I guess it's not something directly, but what I've been inquiring from other people, especially on like heat pump water heaters, and other people, meaning the city of Palo Alto, I've had some conversations with some people there, and they've walked away with a feeling that there's a flinch point as to when people decide not to go ahead. When they get the proposal and they see the number, they call it a flinch point when somebody says, maybe not now, and it may be of value to you to try and sense where that flinch point is, because that may, in some ways, help determine the amount of incentives necessary for people to say, let's go ahead with it. And I think you're probably in touch with the people at Palo Alto, so they can provide you the direct endpoint on their experience in that.
Great. Yeah, thank you for the feedback. And yes, we have been in close contact with Christine Tam and Diane Bailey, who are running those programs over there. And we're closely coordinating with our sister agencies, including Peninsula Clean Energy. So thank you for the suggestion. We'll continue the conversations with those agencies.
I see Colin with hand raised.
I do, thanks. I have 3 questions. So the first one is, how many homes are you hoping to upgrade with both the full service home upgrade and the emergency water heater upgrade programs? And how did you come up with that number?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So for full service home upgrades, we are hoping to upgrade 600 homes, including 250 low income. And so that was decided based on the budget that we have. We assume that each home roughly is for full electrification, is gonna take about $30,000. And, we kind of allocated that based on SVC covering the full cost for low income households, and then the rest of the 350 market rate households, the number of incentives that we'll provide to get them to go all electric. So it's a really rough estimate. Obviously, some homes are going to fully electrify, some homes might only take a couple, might only do their heat pump water heater or their HVAC at a time. So very high level estimates. And then on our emergency water heater program, sorry, I'm flipping through all these slides so I can show you where they're listed. We're hoping to upgrade 650 water heaters. And this is based on the program funding that we have at $2.65 million. And again, considering how many income qualified customer projects we're going to cover and how many market rate rebates we're going to pay out.
Great. Thank you for that. My second question was for the zero interest on bill financing. I think it's really great that you're looking at bill neutrality so as not to increase the financial burden on people, especially when people are struggling. My question though is how do you actually calculate bill neutrality? Because bills go up and down.
Yeah, so there are some things that we obviously we can't control a large portion of what happens with rates. There's other conditions where, usage patterns change. Their bills can, with the equipment itself, weather impacts it. Overall bills change if there's different, new loads added. So, the bill neutrality is aimed for kind of, if we're doing an HVAC measure, we're looking at their heating and cooling loads. And that's and we only use current rates. We use the rate they're currently on, and then we find the optimal rate because there's usually a bit more savings if they're, eligible for an electrification rate. So that's just kind of high level. There's certain things that we can't kind of guarantee against, changes in rates, weather, changing usage patterns, other things that are happening in the household that could impact the overall bill, adding new appliances, changing in occupancy, but looking at kind of heating and cooling loads, for example, that's where we aim for the neutrality.
Great. So that's really clear. That's helpful. Thank you. And then my final question was on the zero interest on bill financing. So I assume this also works together or will work at some point together with the full service upgrade program. But what about so it'd be good to clarify that, but also had a question about the emergency water heater replacement program, whether they're intended to work together.
Yeah, so in some ways they already work together because we have a lot of like the same staff and a lot of the same kind of program. I've used the term infrastructure. We're using the same advisors, same pricing structures, a lot of the same kind of forms and communications. Because right now the financing has to be tied to these bill upgrades that yield bill savings. If customers want to do more comprehensive upgrades, add an induction stove, that's going to take some additional coordination from us to see if we can essentially kind of, support some of these smaller appliances that are not tied to the financing. So those details have to be worked out. For the emergency water heating, generally what we're seeing is that the water heating alone doesn't deliver a ton of savings. So we're seeing high copays on those projects. So they're not great. They don't work great with financing, but a customer could totally do an emergency water heater replacement, and then, get an HVAC upgrade that is financed. So, we're definitely thinking about how we can coordinate so that the customers get the benefits of all these different services. And so we've had some preliminary conversations. We're also just kind of waiting to see how often these overlaps are going to happen because we're not sure how many people are, interested in more measures. So we're going to take this as a learning experience to figure out how we can kind of more closely coordinate and make sure people are getting, the services and benefits across the different programs.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Paul, do you have anything?
I have one question. As always, the hotline is great, and I want as many people to find it as possible. So I'm just curious how the SEO is going for that hotline.
We just recently launched SEO last week for the emergency water heater program. And I have not connected with my marketing lead yet on the success, but I can get back to you on some of the stats. Yeah, we do recognize that that's probably how customers are going to find our program. And so we've been working on Google Ads, but I would love to, if you have ideas or suggestions on how we might improve our SEO, I'd love to hear them.
I have a question. So this program is through all of the cities that you serve. Are there certain cities that are using this program more than others? And then are there ways, there's a certain limit to number of homes that you would do. Is there any plan to extending that or working with the city to extend that number? Or city, how could, say, for example, Los Altos, say if they had a goal, we had a goal to, upgrade 300 households, and depending on all the other places that are getting upgrades, we would, qualify for maybe 100, 150 of those. How could we, partner? Is there any way you think that we could partner to increase the number of upgrades?
Yeah, definitely. I think in this initial soft launch phase, we have intentionally not been promoting the program. Again, just to refine our program processes. I actually only have 13 customers, and they've been pretty evenly distributed across our service territory. And I think once we get towards hard launching the program, I do think that there are a lot of opportunities for our member agencies to collaborate with SVCE in terms of spreading the word, identifying neighborhoods that we can potentially target. And I'd love to continue connecting with Tanya and the folks at the city to identify where we can co-market and spread the word about this program.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time, and really appreciate the program, and then really taking the time to explain it to us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. And I will send the slides over to Tanya so she can distribute them. And our contact information is in the slides, and we'd be happy to take any questions even afterwards. So thank you all for the opportunity to share.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so now we have, thank you for waiting, Glenda, and the rest of the summer intensive presentations. You're welcome to come sit here if it's going to be longer. You're welcome to stand in there.
That's okay. Well, good evening, Environmental Commission Chair and members. If I could indulge you for a little bit, because we have all of our Greentown entrance, if you could just look behind you since we're all here. This is Gary's team. Look, he's here already. You can read. And then our team, the Greenscape Changemaker, is Donovan and Taylor, and also Dr. Patrick. So that's all of them. So we're here, and these interns are here. They're not just here as students, and not also as temporary contributors, but as future environmental leaders, perhaps even future members of this commission. So I just wanted to put that out there and imagine we're raising up, we're strengthening the foundation of Los Altos to progress. I'm Glenda Chang. I'm a board member of Greentown Los Altos, and I want to recognize the EC's leadership in advancing sustainability through the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And your dedication really makes an impact, and we especially appreciate your support, Rashina. You've engaged our interns last summer, and you also will continue to do so. So we really appreciate this. This summer, I'm pleased to introduce Donovan Carlson, who's eager to learn, contribute to the CAP goals, and collaborate with the EC. We will elaborate more on that and seek guidance from you. Greentown looks forward to contributing our partnership as we did with the recent EV Fair and among others, and supporting Donovan on his work this summer. Please welcome Donovan Carlson.
Thank you. I just wanted to start by expressing my gratitude for all the work that you do towards kind of helping Los Altos achieve its goals outlined in the CAP. And I was really hoping that I could kind of help to achieve some of those goals by getting the ball rolling on some of the aspects of the CAP, which the city has not taken as many steps to achieve. And I think one of those areas that you're working on is sustainability in landscaping, greenscaping, and preserving our natural spaces. And what I was really hoping to do this summer was to interview organizations in our community with experience in the realm of greenscaping, and really kind of trying to gauge what residents' opinions are on greenscaping and what questions they have about it. And so yeah, I really wanted to kind of keep this an open-ended discussion. I'm kind of looking for advice that you might have on how I could collaborate and do outreach with these community organizations. And the reason I bring up kind of informing residents about these organizations is the past example of the electric fair, in which residents were kind of able to have these interactive workshops in which they're able to kind of discover more about how electrification worked in practice. So that was just a potential angle that I might have with this project when I come back to present to you in August.
So is your focus on residential, or are you still trying to keep it really open in terms of who you hope to target?
I think I want to focus on residential, but definitely keep it open at the same time. But yeah, I mean, the idea is that residents might be able to learn more about greenscaping and hopefully implement that in the domestic sphere.
I had a question as well. You mentioned greenscaping. Are you also thinking about xeriscaping as part of that, or not?
I think that when we're thinking about greenscaping, we're just kind of considering the practices of really working to preserve pollinators, conserve water, and make sure we're preserving the soil. I'm not quite familiar with the specifics of xeriscaping, but
Yeah, sorry, I should have included that in my question. Yes, so xeriscaping is more, focusing on water conservation through the use of like drought tolerant plants and efficient irrigation. So they tend to, promote native plants because they tend to tick a lot of those boxes. And I guess it's kind of a subset of greenscaping when you look at it that way. So, but I think you answered it in your question, which is that you are looking at it. So.
So, this question is for both teams, actually. How do you see the Environmental Commission helping you with your project?
well, I just feel that as an organization, you, the Environmental Commission, probably have more experience than I might have with outreach to these community organizations. I was really kind of just hoping that you could give me some pointers.
I guess, yeah, that was the question. Was more specifically, what do you need from us? How can we help you? So, anything for Gary's team? Is it similar or?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. I think, we're just starting out now, but at least for our group, our plan is to learn from the other cities, what has worked to make our space and our city more sustainable. So, I mean, I think we're doing our initial research now, but you have any experience, initiatives or something you did that helped the city, that would be helpful.
I have a suggestion that part of your research, the term xeriscaping that Colin brought up was a term that was used pretty dramatically 10, 20 years ago. And there's a lot of research on it. And in fact, especially in Southern California, a lot of their water treatment plants included xeriscape demonstration gardens as part of the installation of a new water facility. So there's a lot of research that's been done on xeriscaping to demonstrate to the people, the water treatment plant supplies the water, that it's open to the public comes and sees it, and there's demonstration gardens, not only at water treatment plants, but in other areas in cities on xeriscape gardens. And I'm sure that especially in Southern California, a lot of work was done on that.
Yeah, but it's a little different climate from the area here.
Well, we can go into that argument that Southern California is moving to Northern California and climate change, but a lot of the same principles apply.
I think we're only allowed to ask questions, not
Oh,
the discussion.
sorry.
So the questions go there. Okay, so, and then, question, for you, Donovan, you're saying you're gonna talk to people and see what they need and what their, what their experiences are. Is that something you would like to ask members? I don't know, how do you do that? How do you approach people? Is it gonna be communities? Is it gonna be, people you find at, certain locations, or is it people you target to go ask?
Well, I suppose that was something I kind of wanted to approach you for, because I feel that you've probably tried multiple of those approaches. And I think we definitely look at individually finding residents and also maybe organizing events to then reach out to a large group of residents. But I wanted to see kind of maybe what you thought was the most effective for your experience.
So, Tanya, I'm not sure the process, is it, so we ask questions and we give feedback, not discussion here, or just questions?
You can respond to the question.
Okay. Yeah, so I think
Keep it-
absolutely, I would volunteer to have a more detailed discussion, and I'm sure some of the other commissioners would too, so maybe you could reach out to Tanya and see if there, you can connect with the commissioners, and maybe there's other, there's Parks and Rec, there's other people in maybe the city, maybe Manny. So you should maybe connect with Tanya and then ask for maybe suggestions of who you could talk to within the city to get started on your research. And we can go from there. That's my bit of advice. And I think both of them are great projects. Thank you for spending your summer with the city.
Just one little tip I'll add is if there's certain organizations that you're trying to reach out to, maybe you're not hearing from somebody, like, great to get a list of Tanya, and maybe one of us knows somebody there to just get that introduction to speed up that process. Yeah, that's.
Okay, yeah, thank you for all your input.
And I just have, also, the city does have a water efficient landscape ordinance. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but I recommend you could just Google City of Los Altos water efficient landscape regulations. Take a look at that, try to understand it. If you have any questions, you can let me know. But yeah, and keep in mind what the state is doing in terms of that, and Valley Water is, well, this is more regarding water efficiency for landscaping. And there's a couple more regulations that are going to be mandating lawn in commercial spaces or in spaces that are not being used for recreation. So kind of pull together all that research on like the different rules and regulations that aren't necessarily just like one ordinance targeting greenscaping, to kind of understand like what the landscape is, no pun intended on that right now.
I have one more thing, in, not doing a discussion, maybe something else you should ask Tanya about is whether, if you're doing outreach, this is for both teams, it's possible to maybe be a booth, use a booth at the farmer's market or any other Los Altos, events that happens in downtown, so it's make something to us.
Yes, thanks. In fact, I think we're planning to do just that. Very excited. Thank you.
I have a person to ask.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. All right, moving on to discussion items.
What's with the meetings?
Yeah, I know, we did them in the wrong order because I have the wrong, agenda. Sorry about that.
I didn't catch it either.
All right, so, Commissioner Hecht is not here. But we were hoping to talk a little bit about general outreach, and since he's been doing that research before, is it something that we want to push to another down the line, or should we, anybody else want to take that over?
I'm happy to lead the discussion. I just wanted to make sure we talked about it before the break. With, I have what,
Okay, good, so let's.
but, are you able to follow? That's why. Yeah, so the first question is, of all this, do we know if anything on here, we think that we have, keeping these yet, do we know if anybody has written anything?
So maybe, Tanya, for, how we do this, maybe it's walk through what it is and then clarifying questions and then public
can
comment
try.
and then discussion, or do we?
Yeah.
Just jump into discussion.
Yeah, there's no public comment, so yeah, I think it's fine, just, if you wanna
Just, I guess.
redirect.
yeah,
it,
For anybody that
direct the conversation.
watching this, I can just say, we had this plan, beginning of the year, we did a second meeting to say, yes, we're committing to this. That includes stuff like writing in the town crier, outreach, the idea of signage outside, a newsletter. And we're having this discussion now because, it has taken a back burner, but, certainly still feel committed that we want to accomplish this since we put it out there. So I think that's the only introduction needed. So if we could go into the questions or discussion.
So I mean, this is an item on our work plan, which, while we're not, I guess there's no formal approval, which I hear from the city manager, we are permitted to work on it, and it's, I can see fit.
Right.
So. Yeah, I don't think we've done a whole lot other than the electric fair, which was a good amount of outreach. That's, I think, one of the items on the work plan that relates to this. But I think, yeah, it's maybe a good time while we have our summer break for those of us who are still willing and around to volunteer, writing an article or reaching out to a group.
Yeah,
Because that's kind of what we had envisioned, is that, different commissioners would, lead up, choose a subject they would want to write on. If they would like to, and work with a community group to see what we can do to spread out our mission.
And we do actually have Jessamine still on, but another participant still on the just.
Okay, so any public
We can't take any virtually anyway, but
okay,
I just want to let you know
yeah,
there is someone who thought.
okay,
it's recorded either way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
everyone can potentially view it.
Yes, yeah, but
okay,
And the idea I also wanted to put forward is, given how much time there is left in the year, would it possibly make sense to try to schedule ourselves so that we're spread out? I think at the beginning of the year, it felt like, well, it's sort of, you know, if we randomly happen to overlap, not a big deal, but now it's getting to the point where we might all just be sending stuff out in 1 month and that's it, so. I'll put out that idea of trying to really hone in on what subject each of us would want to do and try to schedule it out the same way that we do our city council meeting attendance or viewership.
That's a good idea. I'm wondering if, we could have a sign-in sheet for different things that, commissioners who are here and those not here, can volunteer for, is there, I don't think there's any other framework that we have on what we want to talk about. It would make sense to tie into things that are in our work plan.
Yeah.
Or various things that, we expect coming down the line. So I think maybe if we have a spreadsheet where different, folks can either put in what they want to write about or who they want to engage with. And then definitely, we're behind on the quarterly newsletter. Maybe that's something we can pull together with, you know, people have different articles, et cetera, and start that second half of the year.
Yeah, I think that, because we have the dark sky ordinance passed. And it's back in, it was February. So we can write something. Probably the town crier, talk about the dark sky. You know, why do you want to do that? You know, the city. Yeah, I think that would be something to introduce to our community that's ready. I can volunteer for that. I can talk with Tom, see, you know, what he, will fight for anything. I can sign up with that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, the dark sky.
Lighting on.
Yeah. I thought the community group engagement probably would be good for, you know, like the electrification people, right? Because, you know, we want to raise people's awareness that it's going to be a hot push this summer. They can really take advantage of that. Yeah. We did that last year with our ordinance. Dark sky Versailles at farmers market, we find not very productive. People usually do this stuff for things like that.
Probably makes sense to work directly with a community group.
Yes.
Instead of trying to fish out for people who might be interested. Let's see, so I can potentially attempt to write up on one of my things, transportation. Deconstruction, yes, excellent. I could write up on deconstruction. Easy, thank you. And yeah, if I get really creative, and Chloe's working on our survey, maybe we can add a follow-up article to the article that she had on what we might be doing in those. So
What did we say about, I couldn't read very well, the quarterly EC newsletter? I mean, what do we want to cover there? Just kind of inform every commissioner about what's the progress.
Yeah, what we're working on, what we want to share. We have thought about putting that either something that goes on the EC website and as well as maybe goes out. Are we allowed to send things out as have people sign up and send things out, or maybe those that have signed up for the meeting? How do we send it out to, if we have a newsletter?
I'd have to ask about the newsletter and communications for that, because we just use it for the agenda. So yeah, I'd have to ask.
Or maybe we could have a link to it in the city manager's update.
The link to the the newsletter? Or?
Yeah. I mean, assuming we can craft it or something.
Yeah, I'd have to ask what that, like when people signed up for that, what they signed up for, cause if they, we can't just use our emails for anything, so.
Yeah, yeah.
And the PIO is no longer here, the one who, would probably have that information, so I think that's gonna, yeah, require some digging to figure out, yeah, how that started. Or if those newsletters are just strictly for agendas, so I can ask the city clerk. And get back to the commission next month. Or next meeting.
I have a question. I know, Tanya, you're working on trying to get things into the weekly manager's newsletter. There may be an opportunity that we could support something that you're pushing there and try and get an article in the town crier on a subject. But it has to tie into what you're doing and the timing. And I have a couple of ideas, but I'm willing to try to get something in, a letter to the town crier. I have a couple of ideas, but my third is to piggyback on things that you're doing. So that, again, it raises awareness of an issue that you're bringing in the city manager's newsletter.
Yeah, that's a good idea. They're rebranding that newsletter since the PIO left, and there's a new communications person. And I don't think it'll be a weekly thing anymore. So once I get more information on what that's gonna look like, which will realistically probably be sometime at the end of July, I think. Then I think it'll give me more guidance on what we can and can't put in there. Because I think before it was where we could kind of just send like information on topics that obviously were important and we wanted to highlight, but it sounds like they're kind of making more categories in it now. So definitely need to get more information on that.
I think that's, like I say, is I have a couple of ideas for a letter to the town crier, but those can really be done. One of my ideas is related to something else that, you may be involved with, but the other is supportive of what publications you have. And the other is a third idea that really is environmental related, but I don't know if it's really linked. It's linked to things that we do, but it's more personal in nature, my journey in electrification of our home, that type of thing. But that's something.
I think it's totally related.
It's related to what we do, but it's personal experience rather than a commission.
Right. So I guess the other question would be if we send something to, anywhere. And we want to say that it's coming from the Environmental Commission, and we kind of have to review it and it would be approved, right? It's not, so whatever we write, we have to kind of bring it through the agenda and people can say yes, okay, right?
With the missing officer, is it going to be very difficult to get that type of review here in the near future?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the new process is for that and what that's gonna look like. But if it's going through like the town crier, is that what you mean?
Yeah, anywhere, if we put anything in any public place or we speak to a community group, we need to have the authority of the commission to do that.
I think if you sign it on behalf of the commission or with,
Right.
It's gonna have to go through that, but there's other things you can do.
Yeah,
That's
there's
just the
personal
personal
articles,
experience.
yeah. So I think what we need to do is to start a spreadsheet both in terms of volunteers and then also maybe a timeline of, when we might put that. I mean, we need the volunteers to make the content first, and then, we can figure out how we space it out, starting whenever, I'm assuming sometime after our next meeting. If we know this.
Probably when we first agreed on this, that we were gonna be working around that limitation a little bit and be saying, essentially, like, maybe we'd be mentioning that we are on the commission, but not trying to sign this letter on behalf of the commission.
Yeah, so that I think any one of us could do anytime,
Yeah.
right? That's, prerogative, so
Right.
I don't think that needs.
Right.
But it'd be good to line up things if we're all talking about something.
Right.
But if we wanna have like something coming out of the commission, then.
Right.
As a more formal thing.
Yeah.
And then the other question would be. Working with the town crier, if that's one of the ways we go through is how. How they will accept and things,
Yeah, so with the town crier article, does that, what you just said apply to that? Or,
Well, my first interpretation when we discussed this was that it was gonna be more of just opinion letters to town crier, and thus. And thus, we could, the only way it would tie back necessarily to the commission is if we mention. The commission is working on this, or, just saying, I am a environmental commissioner and. And then go on and talk about something, so. That's where my headspace has been at, and so I have a document where I've written 3 or 4 ideas, and. They all unfortunately come off as a little bit too preachy for my taste in terms of what I would want to put out there. So that's been my struggle with actually putting them out there, but I think there's at least. Now we've had some discussions about system health, there's ways to tie that in a little bit. Try to sort that, but so it's certainly where. It is right now, and it's just an urban forest, but.
yeah, so if it's gonna be like an article as a commission, as an entity as a whole, I'm gonna need to get clarification on that part.
Yeah.
And then the community group engagement. That we need. I guess if that's a community group liaison, that the commission can do that. Per the handbook, because it's not from commission to commission, because there was a little bit of. Like, we're still waiting to get feedback on that, but I think that's directly in the handbook of where we can get. So I guess the commission would just need to decide on who the community group is and what the goals are. And then, yeah, the newsletter, creating a newsletter. Like who the audience would be and how we're gonna build that subscription base.
Yeah, I think that would need a little bit more, understanding of what the rules are around that, and then also how we would build it and bring, so maybe that's future agenda item. So another thing on this that I'm seeing, what we have at the bottom, better notification and signage for meetings, I feel like that's something we could do fairly easily.
Yeah.
So, how do people know that these meetings are here, other than someone who already knows, wants to say something?
Yeah, I asked the front desk before this meeting about, how early before a meeting could we potentially put signage up, and he didn't have an answer, said to ask somebody else, so I will follow up to figure out what that is. Certainly my struggle with, I would love to make a sign, but using materials just as an environmental commission, it's just, there's always a source of tension there. I start to think about the sort of the signage that, well, churches and schools and fast food places have of like exchanging out letters. I would love to have something like that so that we wouldn't have to make a fully custom sign every time, and we were able to get a message there that is reusable. So that's just one thought for.
So the staff that work out there right now are just, like, I don't know what
Yeah,
legally they are, but they're not like, city staff.
yeah,
They're, I don't know if they're contracted, but that's why they don't know.
Yeah.
It's something I'd have to ask, like, the director of parks who manages this facility, but what is the signage for?
So it could be like environmental commission meeting this day.
Yeah, and just trying
then-
to raise
on the
awareness
agenda.
that we're having this here, so I think just, and this is something we discussed when we first talked about this, is just having something that's more than just our agenda right outside this door, so that people, one, become more aware that this is happening here, and two, that we start to get some word out of like, oh, they're gonna be talking about this. Just in a way that's a little bit easier to discover than
Yeah.
going through the website and all that,
And
so,
other key places like the library maybe
yeah.
post it if it's something that we.
Question, do other commissions meet here in the community center? You know, I think what, an idea along with Carl's talking about is, you know, if you had a standard that you just slip out, it says environmental commission meeting tonight, you know, 6 o'clock, and then you can pull that out and you can slip in, you know, Parks and Rec meeting tonight, you know, just,
That would be a bigger.
but that's just built, that's an idea building on what he's saying, it's just getting some sort of notice that somebody walks in the building and the day of a meeting says, oh, they're meeting tonight.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Yeah, I mean, people can participate via Zoom too, and they can watch the whole meeting
Right.
via Zoom, which I think.
Yeah.
We don't
But
see much
anyhow,
people
it's-
doing that either, but if, yeah, if that would have to also be like a bigger discussion or. A bigger discussion with like the city clerk of like what and Nick of what, cause I don't think they've ever really thought about how to build engagement into commission like at a city level. Or, cause they don't even do that for council meetings, so I think this would be.
So I wonder,
Mhm.
is it something that, since we're not meeting over the summer, that you could do some background, research on what we could do? Say on some of the efforts we've talked about, what the, you know, rough, rules are, so that when we come in, if we're putting it on the agenda, in August, then we can be able to make some decisions.
Yeah, I can ask
Yes,
get these questions, some of these questions,
and I could,
answered for-
also scribble a list of questions that I think would make sense to us, send it over.
Yeah, I already noted the questions, I think. I think some of the pushback, I think that we might get is that like they don't even do this for city council meeting. So, I think, yeah, we're just gonna have to figure out. Kind of how we're gonna get this engagement, and I think putting signs out at different, like at the library or something could be helpful.
Yeah, so then we probably, we need someone who does it, so maybe volunteer, this is closer to where we are.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be like, have to be like a bigger conversation with
Okay.
Nick in the city clerk's office.
One other thing is that I think I signed up for this like 2-3 years ago. I want to get city managers update. It's weekly. And it comes every Friday. So could that's another way. I think a lot of people subscribe to electronic things. And you could put in the upcoming, like this week. Because usually city manager electronic newsletter sends out Friday afternoon. Right, only that people can see, okay, because our meeting is Wednesday, always this time. And we will say, okay, the next environmental commission meeting will be this next Wednesday. Where, and the key agenda item can be found and we have a link. So when people get this city managers update, they will be able to see that. I think electronically, I feel it can reach a lot of people because I don't come to this can resent it that much, because I'm not waiting so close, like walking, by bike here, if me maybe 20 minutes. Still kind of far, right?
And I
Yeah, are we
can
around?
certainly propose that to them.
Mhm.
I don't know if they'll still be putting it out every Friday. But, yeah. Definitely can relay the suggestion to them.
Okay, so in the interest of time, maybe we can move on. So the couple of things we discussed is, create a sign-up sheet that, the commissioners can say, I want to do this, and then.
Other sign sheet up, is that Valerie and Brian, if we have something that, it would just be. You would
Well,
want to be
yeah.
able to view it, right? We had a spreadsheet like that,
I'm not sure.
okay,
Or it could be a list of things and folks just email Tanya that, okay, I want to volunteer for this, without knowing who else is volunteering for what, is that the?
So
concern?
we tried to get like a list of like for newsletter at the first UV fair. But it like we didn't have a lot of people sign up, so that's like also part of like getting signups is like where do we get people to sign up at?
yeah.
So it's like building the base of that, like
Yeah.
how are we gonna do that?
I'm just asking about the sign up fee that Christina's talking about for topics and like,
Oh, yeah, that can't be.
Yeah,
working
so,
done.
I mean,
I would
yeah.
have to bring it to a meeting,
yeah,
and view it like at a public
Okay,
meeting.
yeah. We're bringing that up, so not a sign-up sheet, it would be something that maybe you put into a sheet that
Mhm.
people email you, this is what I want.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, it can't be, yeah.
I'll say, I will try very hard to commit to sending something, on behalf of myself to the town crier in June, so that this month is covered and we've started.
Okay.
So,
Alright, good, so let's move on, so,
So sorry, I'm a little confused about.
Okay, sorry.
About what we're trying to accomplish. So,
essentially, we agreed to alternative get, it says quarterly article, but I think I recall, and someone else corrected, but I thought the goal was that all of us were gonna try to send something into the town crier so that we are raising awareness of the commission through that outreach, so
okay,
that's what I saw as the goal.
I think we need to get on the same page.
Yeah.
So let's maybe, when we get to the future agenda thing, put this on a future
Okay.
agenda item and, maybe prep a little bit more in terms of what, and have that discussion of exactly what we want to do. With some more information, but in the meanwhile, we have ideas of something we want to put out. So you could send a list of things that maybe we would be interested in. And
I'm
that's
still confused that like.
Okay, sorry.
We've gone like very different ways,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
We're going in a lot of different directions, so the town crier articles, sounds like we need to have further discussion of what everyone was thinking that would mean, if it's gonna be a commission, coming from the commission or coming individually, because that's gonna have different impacts, and then a quarterly newsletter. So I can ask questions, those questions to the particular
Right,
people
right.
on a quarterly newsletter. And that's something that, I think the executive team is gonna have to approve and stuff, so. And I'm not sure if you wanna prepare more information before I ask, or if you just want me to go and ask without lots of information on what that's gonna actually look like.
So it would be good to have the information of one, can we do it? And two, what it would take for us to do it? Because it may be possible that we're not allowed to do it unless it's not groups, I don't know, but so we can just figure out, can we do it and what it would take if we have a newsletter. Okay, so just stepping back. Since we have this in the agenda packet, or we know what was a list of things potentially, and we also have a list of it in the work plan. If there's anything any of us want to volunteer to do between now and the next meeting, we can send that to Tanya so she can have a record of what people have volunteered for. And then maybe at some point, are you allowed to share that list with us?
At
Once
a
you have it,
public meeting.
at a public meeting, okay, so at the next meeting, we can look at that list, or. So, and then, or we could volunteer next time when we have that. Right, so. we can
So if
always
anyone
think
sent
about-
anything to the town prior and then until the next meeting, let me know. As an individual, and then if there's any topics you think of during the break. Send me those and then.
Yeah.
We can have a list for the next meeting. That's what start getting our brains going. Okay. I'll ask those questions.
Okay, same thing applies for moving on to the next agenda item, the cap plan updates. So I haven't put anything here. I think I just wanted to bring it up as something that we had said we would do on our work plan. And we talked about maybe individual commissioners will look at each different a particular area, if that is the way we decide to do it. And then we'll take the homework to review that area and see if there's anything that jumps out as being out of date or needing to be updated or something to be added to it. So the different general areas are transportation, energy, resource conservation, municipal operations, and community, climate risk, emergency management, and resilient community. So there's more areas than there's people, but I'm thinking, makes enough. Yeah,
There's 8 strategies.
yeah. So I think the big ones are transportation, energy. Where is green spaces?
That was 5.
Yeah, community, right? Green community.
Oh, number 5.
Yeah, it's fine. So I think whatever, I just don't know how to for us to organize that unless somebody wants to volunteer for something specifically at this meeting.
The 2 that I feel comfortable volunteering for would be 3 and 5. So
Resource conservation.
3 being reduce consumption and waste, and then the development through based solutions.
Right.
So could certainly look into those 2 more.
Since I'm working on transportation, just here by default, I could look at that in more detail. So we have 3 areas covered.
I have a clarifying question. This is to update the plan, right?
This is to look at the cap, because that's one of our responsibilities, is to look at the cap, and if there's anything that we feel needs to change, either something that's not relevant, we can say, okay, this is not something we're working on anymore, or it's something that we feel was missing that comes up now, or and it's not changing the cap itself, it's just looking at it and seeing if there's any updates to each section that might be needed, that we would recommend. And then we're tasked to then once a year present it to council with the presentation.
Just want to acknowledge I'm passing this, just the list of the cap that we got with implementation status disrupting. I'm not passing any particular notes, just
So essentially summarizing the commission's thoughts on the cap and then providing a summary to the council with a goal of providing a summary.
So maybe the process would be commissioners look at whatever area they feel comfortable looking at, and it doesn't have to be exclusive. If there's more things that anybody wants to look at and have a comment on, that's fine too. And then we can compile those and then review it together as a commission, as an agenda. An item for discussion on the future meeting. And so as part of, when we have our next joint session with council, if there is major things that need to be updated, we can propose that. Not major, anything that we feel the commission agrees that we can see updated, we propose that. I think we had a couple of things in the work plan this year that we kind of,
We had written up, but.
yeah, but we
necessarily.
took it out because, you know, we wanted to simplify. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just I'm getting in the weeds of thinking like what the end goal would be. Is that like, and I don't know if anyone remembers what council said when they came up with that like bullet for the updates, but I guess I'm wondering if it's gonna look like just like informally saying like these things on the cap are no longer something we're gonna be working on, or is it like with a goal to like get funds to update, like an official update of the cap?
I have some opinions I can say.
But we don't have to talk about that now. I'm just wondering of like what the work, all this work is being done, what is the outcome?
So I'll just read out, where it says in,
Yeah.
in the commission handbook once again. Make annual recommendations for changes or updates to the plan.
Correct. I was
So,
wondering if anyone remembers if the council said anything specifically about elaborating on that.
yeah, so I don't recall if it was, Councilmember Meadows, who was worried that we would want to be changing the cap specifically, and that's not in our purview. So.
I think that
that's
was at the time Weinberg.
Okay.
I think it was my birthday.
Yeah, sorry. And, but I think that was not our intent, right? Our intent is only to say, this is what we see as maybe missing, this is what we see as not relevant anymore, and, if the council agrees, they can just, well, I don't know what the process is for updating the cap, that way, but it's something that's written here that we haven't been doing, so.
I think the value is in knowing where our current thinking is and being able to, if we, have a certain directive in a future year, they can say, oh, this is why they've sort of shifted in that direction. And two, thinking, okay, here's a list ready for when that next up, I know there's a scheduled update, but when that scheduled update comes, oh, we've already got all these updates, that we already have approval to make, basically, so.
So there's also other things in the cap, like, timeline, priority, which are not really changing the cap, it's just changing what we think is maybe more urgent to work on, so maybe that's also something that we know some of the things on the timeline are already not true. So we said, we'll do something between up to 2025. So maybe we need to have an updated timeline, what we think makes sense. And if it feels like we're not able to make the carbon neutral by 2035 goal, we should also maybe do that assessment, and let council know that we're not comfortable with that commitment. And that's not something that necessarily needs to change anything. It's our duty to communicate to council. So. Okay.
Sorry, in looking back to the February meeting, we actually had on the work plan that we discussed an anticipated timeline. There was a cap update stream, and it had that as a working pair. I guess we never formed that working pair. Just looking back.
Yeah, we didn't take that item up, partly because we wanted to be sure that the council didn't have any objections. But now we've been told that we're free to go work on our work plan in the middle of the year. That was partly it, and partly because we're shorthanded, and not able to get to anything, I don't think. We did working pairs. We could do working pairs and work on 2 or 3 different things at a time. But
I think Yeah, I think it might be a little bit structured if it's a working pair and we're okay to do that.
Maybe that's
Um,
great. So, where are we?
Not volunteering myself, by the way, I'm just saying.
You can volunteer yourself. It sounds like, there could be a couple people working on energy. I guess people who are working on energy can also look at that section. People who are working on, the working pairs that are working on something can review that. And the individual commissioner that is working on something can review what they're working on.
Yeah, it just gets tricky with, what overlap might exist, potential for information from another working pair getting.
Yeah, no, it would have to be the same work. If it's a working pair, I don't think it would be like Xiaopeng and Carl are working on the urban forest, and then me and Carl, or me and Xiaopeng start reviewing it, but then we may have that, what is it called, daisy chain?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's a working pair, it would have to be the same working pair that's working
Yeah.
on that. Maybe sense.
I like the idea of us all sort of individually trying to progress the thinking and then having like a very dedicated agenda for one month to discuss it.
Yeah, so I think that while the working pair is a good idea, maybe thinking on my feet is maybe it makes sense for us to do some research individually. And whatever we can cover. And then when we come at a future meeting, when we're talking about this in more detail, we can agendize how we want to formalize what we're going to be presenting to council. Does that make sense?
I think it's a little ambiguous personally. Like I see the risk that everyone goes away and sees a different side of the elephant, and then we come back and we realize hopefully it's an elephant, but maybe not. So I think there could be a benefit from a little bit of structure here.
Thinking about next year's work plan,
Yeah.
unless we're just planning to be like, we're gonna continue working on these items, which I think is what is gonna happen, but I don't want you to spread yourselves too thin.
Yeah.
Sure.
And yeah, and again, because we're shorthanded, and we feel like we're not able to get to something, we can also agree on that and push it down to a future year.
Yeah, and I think the work plan shows the council that these are what the commission thinks the priorities are. And choosing not to work on other things is a reflection of, well, this is not a higher priority and may not be relevant anymore. But it's not a formalized report out, I understand, but.
Yeah, so, thanks for pointing that out. And thanks for pointing out that we should be spreading ourselves too thin. So, again, this is voluntary. If somebody wants to go ahead and dive into something and bring something forward to commission, maybe that's a way to do it without appointing people to do it or signing yourself up to do it. Does that make sense?
I think, well, I sort of like the thing where we agree that some people take some things and look at them and other people take other things. And I'm perfectly willing to take, a section or a part of it and do that. Do a deep dive but then after everybody has their deep dive and their list of recommendations, then somebody has to normalize it so that you're not making different suggestions that counteract other suggestions. So you need some sort of organizer in the end. But I'm perfectly willing to do that, and however you want to do it, that's fine. I'm willing to take on a portion.
How do you want to do it?
Well, one way is, and I don't know if this is part of the discussion, is Rashina sort of knows we're working in niches right now, and she could say, here's a suggestion, anybody can opt out of my volunteering you or I'm speaking on behalf of Rashina.
Yeah, no,
Or swap with somebody else. But you sort of have to, somebody has to sort of look at the big
Yeah,
picture
okay.
and then sort of segregate the effort.
Yeah,
So is
So-
everyone in agreement that this is something that you wanna do? Cause it sounds like Commissioner Nee might not be, so we might need to take a vote.
I guess the
first.
question is if we want to present the council with some recommendations on the overall cap, what they should be thinking of long range, just recommendations, not change this to that, but recommendations that these areas should be looked into or add this area, subtract that area, you know, those types of real broad things. If that's what we want to present to the council, then I think we have to work on it.
But didn't we have a joint meeting with them back in February? That they have told us one of the,
Yeah, they don't want to update the plan, and
Yeah.
these are just suggestions on, at your next update, or when you're prioritizing, these are things that we see that would be our recommendation, but if we
So-
don't, if we feel that we
So-
shouldn't provide that to the council, or we're gonna defer that to next year, then let's not take it up.
okay, so maybe I have a suggestion.
Uh,
First, maybe we could, if it's okay, we take a vote and see. If we wanna take this up, or if we wanna say, okay, this is not something we're working on. Not something we,
Did you make a motion?
yeah, is that? Okay, so. What's my motion? So how do I frame the motion?
So then is your motion to defer this item until a future date to work on the other things that we're doing?
Yeah, so that's why I was wondering, that should be my motion, or should my motion be the other way around?
Maybe
somebody else can-
informally go around the room and just see
Yeah.
where everyone's
Yeah.
at.
Yeah,
So
so
Well, the other
let's
one,
just, yeah,
that's certainly one thing, so you defer the whole thing. The other potential way is you look at it very broadly. You know, the chair or somebody looks through the system very broadly and say, you know, it's serving us generally well, and we don't have any specific things right now. But somebody would have to draw that conclusion, although, but then you get into what's not working well, so maybe the best, you know, I'm sort of weighing the alternatives here. One is
I
to,
think it needs to also be based on some data, like the greenhouse gas emission inventory.
certainly for deep dives on any changes, yes.
okay,
And we don't have that sorted out yet.
I mean, what I presented is essentially like what, there's not much more to be updated to it, so it's pretty much the same, we're pretty much in the same place.
Okay, well,
So,
it makes sense without data, you can't. You know, to be really specific on where you think you're lacking or needs additional effort, or without the
Mhm.
specific data, you have a tough time drawing conclusions. And so, you know, that's an argument for deferring it.
mhm. All right, so. Okay, I'll make a motion, to defer the cap update, the formal cap update, the
Recommendation.
recommendation to council for this year. Anybody want a second?
I second that.
That's the way I framed it doesn't mean I want to say yes or no. Just have to choose a way to frame it. So, should we take a
Is
vote?
that, well,
I think if you're making the motion,
you have a motion and you have a second, so the next thing is
Take a
you can,
vote.
no, you can ask if there's any discussion on the motion, and then take a vote.
or friendly amendments, if we wanna make it
Yeah, or
very formal.
amendments, yeah.
Okay. No discussion? No amendments? Should we take a vote?
Do wanna have Colin have a chance to weigh in. I didn't quite understand your position on providing you know, information to the council.
Thanks for letting me speak. I think I was just in favor of you know, having a proper structure around it and having like a vehicle, like a working pair, you know, was the thing I suggested to actually take that body of work forward. And I agree with the assignments being as they are right now. It's just not obvious that you could do that. And maybe we just need to wait for a new commissioner to come on board. But yeah, I mean, my head was at maybe a deferral is better.
And is this to bring to council in October? Or when did we, in February, was it
It says,
January, February?
it says annually is what we're tasked to do, so. I don't know if, I mean, we just have the one joint meeting, so I'm assuming it's at that joint meeting
Mhm.
in February. But it's not something we've brought to council.
It might be
So far.
something you can get clarification about enough what or when. Or I don't know if we can ask Lisa.
Yeah, I thought
if-
about it.
if
We should
you-
probably talk to our liaison. At the council, have a conversation with her.
I asked her for
Yeah.
guidance or a meeting. I haven't heard back yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I just
shall we
wanted to
take
put
a
in the
vote
timeline into-
on the motion?
Yeah. So,
And it could be yes or no.
but the council meetings are set for February type timeframe.
The joint
The joint
commission meetings, yeah.
with council February timeframe, and we're expected perhaps to have a new commissioner around September.
I think so, yeah.
And the other good suggestion, we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded, so we're talking now about whether or not to amend it or not.
Yeah, if somebody
But-
wants an alternate
But
motion.
the other thing that I heard in this part of the discussion, that it would be perhaps something to check in with NISA before we slam down the gauntlet and say, well, no, we're not gonna do this. Is that what I'm hearing the sense?
I guess I was just probing the question so that we understand the timeline, if we're gonna do this, the chance to do it, I guess. The nearest chance to do it, based on the knowledge we have today, is during the joint commission meeting, which we also know is already a very tight meeting where we get little time to speak. So.
It's still a document. We're
We-
past-
Provide a document,
Yeah.
correct.
This
It's-
is
it's
something
February.
you provide in advance of that meeting, so it really have to be done
Yeah,
by the end of the year type thing.
so this is something for February.
It would be something for
Yeah.
February if it was.
Okay, so. It's okay to say no, we should not defer it to next year.
Okay, I'll take.
Unless there's a,
Unless somebody else has, we're not moving forward very fast.
yeah.
So could you
So-
repeat the motion again?
The
I had a
motion is to, defer this work to another year, next year?
If
Okay,
Yeah.
future
Future
year,
years, because we cannot.
because we're
defer it.
working on the timeline of a February joint commission meeting. So can we, the motion is kind of basically, can we do this by February? And do we want to defer this to after 2026 calendar year or later?
You're deferring it, you'd have to have it done in 5 months or whatever, or 17 or 18 months.
Yes,
Mhm.
to the next joint meeting, yeah.
All right, so the motion is. Do we want to defer this action, this work plan item? To. Somewhere down the future? And that has been seconded, so,
Can you specify when in the future though?
we cannot, right, because it has to be put on the work plan.
Well, it won't come back again this year. Or that's what.
Well, if you want to amend it to defer this decision to August, that's, we can amend that.
Yeah.
Or I can withdraw my motion. Not being very decisive group today.
Okay, well, you can, sorry, and keep adding to the, what, can you repeat the motion and then we'll vote? Hold on a second. And we'll vote.
I think there should be I'll offer an amendment to put a timeline to it. Defer it until, to be worked on in 2026. I guess I gotta, if I'm gonna amend the motion,
Yeah.
I have to be specific. So, I guess that would be to defer the start of work on this until 2026. So which means it wouldn't make it in time for the council meeting. The joint meeting with council.
I accept that amendment. So we do not work on it till December.
Until at least the beginning of next year.
Okay.
Or we can't, I mean, somebody wants to work on it, that's fine. But
We
we as a
can
commission
always,
are
we can
not-
always move to start the work
Yeah.
again, you know, if this is just our decision at this point. The decision can change by another, in August, we can rearrange it if we want.
Yeah, so we can motion to bring it back.
Okay. Ready for a vote?
We
Yeah.
start with Colin.
So we
Ready?
got a motion seconded and the friendly amendment's been accepted, so.
So Commissioner Neely,
Yes.
okay, Commissioner Whedon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Race,
No, I would prefer to get started then, so, yeah. and then-
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
In that
Chair
case, I'll say
Ryan?
no, and then let the motion pass.
Okay, so the motion passes.
Can I say no to my own motion?
That's a little
I
strange.
don't know.
It's unusual, but you can do it.
It's unusual, but I guess you can do
Yeah,
it.
I think usually the person making the motion is the one who is.
Okay, fine.
But-
Okay, yes, 4-1,
Okay,
4-1, right?
motion passes 4-1.
No, it's a street to two.
Yes.
No, I
yes,
see.
no, yes.
Oh,
I was
you
convinced
put
that
it-
to vote in line with my motion, so. I've been very coffee today. Okay, moving on. What's next?
Residential building electrification.
So,
Okay, so this is actually a discussion item, Tanya, right?
mhm.
On-
Yes.
Okay. I mean, Tom and I didn't prepare a slide deck for this, but we do have an update that I'll give to you verbally. So the building electrification working pair met recently with Veronica, and I'm probably going to butcher her name, Tanya, help me out here. Tinoco.
Yes, the building official. Mhm.
Yeah. And the point of the meeting was kind of to explore the proposal we made last time and explore whether there are practical policy levers for accelerating electrification. And so we discussed quite a few different topics. One topic of discussion was permit fees and incentives on permit fees. Another one was around use of variances as an incentive tool. We also discussed whether it makes sense for the city to develop like a electrification scorecard using permit data to figure out what's the progress of electrification in Los Altos. And then a couple of other topics came up that I'll go into. But essentially, the way that I understood it is Veronica expressed openness to creative approaches such as waiving or reducing fees to encourage electrification. She did note, however, that any changes would require a supporting fee analysis, but that such a study would probably be less complex than the recent citywide fee analysis, which happened. She did expect some potential city staff resistance to this, but kind of agreed with Tom and by proxy myself that this could be a powerful lever if we could demonstrate effectiveness with solid data. The second big thing was on the use of variances as an incentive tool. So from what I gathered, Veronica is supportive of zoning code variances to promote all electric construction. And we spoke about the precedent that Los Altos Hills offered a 500 square foot bonus for homes adding solar. So I believe that she thought that similar mechanisms could potentially be powerful here. But again, there are environmental trade-offs with that we've also discussed, I think, previously as part of the commission. And this remains, I think, in the same bucket as the first one, in that, we need to not only discuss that at the commission, but also, collect more data to understand the impact. There are some other things that we also discussed. I think Veronica made actually a really good point on the decision around electrification, and that, the actual permitting comes kind of at the end of a decision already been taken. And typically, obviously, this happens during planning or by contractors themselves. And so to increase impact, Veronica recommended that we focus outreach and incentives earlier in the process. For example, in the planning stage, or even, directly with contractors. So I think we liked that guidance, and that, reinforces some of the other priorities that we showed last time. Another thing that was discussed was PG&E delays to panel upgrades as being a potential barrier. I think this was something Veronica brought up. So panel upgrade delays from PG&E are a recurring problem, and they would potentially dampen contractor enthusiasm for recommending electric appliances, because it obviously affects their ability to, get in, get out, and move on. And so Veronica suggested exploring whether we could engage with PG&E and see if there's anything that can be done to alleviate this. And then I'm just looking through my notes here. Another thing that was discussed was the scorecard for electrification. So there was a concern that historical data on electric permits might be a bit limited, but Veronica believes that the current data collection we could start doing something now, and that I think her conviction was that this would show stronger electrification trends than we're expecting, which will be great news. So, those were kind of the key items. And so actually the next steps for the commission, which is kind of why I asked whether this was a discussion item, is Tom and I in the working pair, we actually plan to use the summer recess to research these concepts a lot further. Obviously, if we're, proposing doing something with permit fees and incentives, we want to be coming to the table with some data or some strong arguments as to why this would be a good thing to do. And so we do need some time to research this. And that's not only true of the potential fee changes or recommendations to fee changes, but also to variances and the scorecard methodologies. So I think at this stage, no option has been ruled out. Veronica sounded open to all of the ideas we discussed, obviously contingent on data and on feasibility. And so the idea is that we'd return in the fall with a set of more fully developed policy proposals, ideally with some supporting data or precedent, from other jurisdictions or neighboring cities. So that's it for the update. Tanya, I'm not sure if it's appropriate to ask you for your input here because you were also present during this meeting. So I'll but basically I'm done with my update.
I think you gave a pretty good recap, Commissioner Nee. I will say that I think the zoning part is up to planning. So just that clarification. And if I could just add, are you okay if I just kind of add on what we've been doing with staff on that relates to like all of these points?
Of course, yes.
Okay, so yeah, I was in that meeting with Veronica, and it was a good productive meeting. Just what staff have kind of been doing in the meantime is I created this kind of flyer about rebates, and I put it out in our lobby, and so we can just kind of get people to just see it in other places than the website. And people have already been asking questions, and so Veronica's been getting more questions on this, so it is working. These are these could change at any time. There probably is some edits or things we could do to it, but this is what it is for now. And the goal is to get them to SVCE's advisor. What do they call? I'm blanking out on the name.
Energy advisor.
Their energy advisor. That is the number on there, and then they can call and hopefully opens them up to a bunch more information. So that was just something quickly that I put together, and we also met with SVCE because they're developing like pre-wiring hangouts. We met with them today and their consultant on how can we target more residents for building electrification, and kind of figuring out how are we going to get the data, who is the target audience. Veronica feels that people are already doing this, and the people who would be going to the websites are people who are already electrifying. That's kind of anecdotal, but I think she told us that she'd be able to print some reports out for us on some data in that meeting. But right now we're primarily working without a lot of data, right? To know who to target. But yeah, so we're just kind of, and I brought this up to planning on like where can they start putting this in their process of trying to get to residents at that phase, and I'm still waiting to hear back from them. We did meet with SVCE also today, and then like a few weeks ago on like the city's action plan. So they work with us on an action plan towards electrification. And they did say that we're doing pretty well compared to other cities. Like we have permits online that for heat pump water heaters and other things. So try and figure out all the angles that we can get these rebate information out. I'm hoping that the divisions like the planning and the building commission will put some rebate information on their websites earlier into the process, so people can just start seeing it and don't have to click through our website to get to that rebate page that the commission came up with a few years back. So that's kind of some of the stuff that we're doing in the meantime before we get a formal recommendation from subcommittee or the working group.
How much does our city charge? Can we ask questions?
Yeah.
How much does our city charge for the community? It varies. So one appliance, one permit, or let's say you prepare to do two, and then you purchase together one permit.
So if I recall, sorry, tell me if you don't answer. If I recall, Nick had shared with us that for appliance, the upgrades, there was no fee for if it was gonna be electric. There was. Does anybody else recall? I think it made a little presentation on, either it was no fee or it was already significantly lower for electric versus gas.
My understanding is the building permits are based on the cost of it, the construction cost. So if, for example, if you're changing out, if you're changing an appliance, but there's no need for a building permit, there's no charge. But if you're changing an appliance that requires an electrical modification to your house, and you're gonna pay the permit cost related to the cost of the electrical modification. And they have a very sophisticated way of what percentage of the construction costs is the bill.
And this is our
permit
city.
fee.
This is for the
Our
building,
city.
not.
Yeah, this is our.
Will you
Because
have
I-
these, sorry, for individual appliances, if someone's changing out their water heater or their
Yeah, because,
HVAC? Or were you asking?
yeah, why I'm
building
asking
permit?
this is that these appliances, I think, we know they were just costing out, right? It's about $2,500, given all the, you have all the rebates in place. So if the cost of the permit is 10%, I don't know if it's somewhere around 200, 250. That's nothing. I don't think it's going to be an issue for most of the Los Altos residents. Maybe, very senior folks. I don't think that would be a determining factor that shy them away from electrification. So I just don't know. Yeah, it's a good gesture that our city offered that.
So I have, having just gone through, paying fees for an ADU for my in-laws. And then looking at what the fees are for doing there is a lot of fees actually, like there's the school impact fees, there is the park review fees, which is actually a huge amount, and then there's various plan check fees and other fees, so. I think there might be ways to look at that fees. Say, for example, if there is a parking, which I think that's because, correct me Tony, if I'm wrong, it's if we're putting a structure, we're taking away some land, we pay fees that will contribute to the city. Allocating some other land or doing some other, investing that money into a different area. So maybe if that's a gas, if that building is a gas-based building, whatever, all the appliances are gas versus they're all electric, there could be a different impact. So maybe there's creative ways of looking at the fees. I just know that it's a lot. Overall, when you're doing major construction project, it adds up to a lot. So I would see that as being a significant incentive. If people know ahead of time when they're planning, because by the time you come to the end of it and then you say, oh, these are the fees, and I wish I'd done all of it before then. Yeah, so.
I also wanted to add that we're exploring something with SBCE to do a free pilot for building electrification projects. And that would be funded by SBCE. So it would be funding to backfill any foregone permit revenues. They brought that up to us at one of the meetings we were at, and the building division needs to look and see like how they would actually do that, like in a processes, and they have to work with finance and stuff. So I'm hoping that we can do that pilot program too.
What type of building? Is this
Free permit for building electrification projects.
okay?
Which would be HVAC.
I have a question on the presentation column. If we're at questions or the combination of questions and discussion.
Should be questions.
Okay, I have a question first, and that is, in the agenda package, there was a few slides. So those weren't really updated. as part of it, so I'm looking at some old information and this, what was included with the agenda. Is that,
I wasn't sure whether was this literally just the slides from last time, Tanya?
Yeah.
okay, so it was
Okay.
just the from last time.
Yeah.
I have a,
I don't believe we updated those with the idea of this update that we're giving today. So I think, based on the some things that we discovered in the call with Veronica and the presentation that we got today from Silicon Valley Clean Energy, I think we would, without speaking for Commissioner Hecht, who's not here, we would probably de-emphasize or emphasize certain things a bit differently now.
okay. Can I switch to a comment now, or do we have any more questions?
Since we're talking about it now, any questions? No clarifying questions, okay, no public comment, okay, discussion.
Thanks, Tanya.
In the one thing that I would suggest that you include in the community engagement and education part, I was intrigued by the discussion that we had last meeting regarding a speaker series.
Yes, and I have an update on that.
And
We're going to be doing that next year.
What I would, okay, next year,
Oh, this.
next fiscal year,
Which is,
which is 30 days from now. But
yes.
Maybe I don't want to get into that if you're going to talk about it later, but what I'm suggesting is I think that would be a good item to incorporate into what you're considering here. In other
Thanks
words,
for the feedback. Yeah.
in other words, we have a community engagement and education portion, and I think that was brought up in the way of an electrification speaker series, but and so I think it should be something here that you could add on and flesh out as one of the recommendations coming back from your working pair, if it cuts mustard. And that was the speaker series and the induction cooktop loaner program, which was another idea that perhaps could fall under the community engagement education.
So that I think those things are already on the table. So I'm working on a contract right now for the speaker series. So we'll have 3 speakers, 3 meetings, 3 sessions, all on building electrification. And it's not fully established yet, but I can provide an update in August on the official stuff, but it'll be,
offer a comment on that.
Sure.
Okay. A number of years ago, pre-pandemic, Greentown did a series of speaker series at the library in the evenings, and we did about maybe 6 to 8 during the year. It was not quite one a month, it took some holidays, but it was really very successful. And the range of topics varied, and I would encourage to think broadly about this speaker series, and perhaps we were thinking about how to use the funds that are budgeted for the commission's work to maybe expand the speaker series to cover such things as greenscaping, if that's the right term, or landscaping. The other one that building deconstruction, and other things, or maybe recycling, so that it's not only building electrification, but it could be expanded to bring issues that we're discussing here and bring them more into the community. And that's the thought that I had, and it's building on what Greentown did several years ago when Greentown had we had a part-time paid, director, if you will, and he set those up and did it, and it was really quite successful, and it was successful in getting the word out to the community on topics of environmental interest. And I think, yes, building electrification is one, but what I'm saying is think a little broader. Maybe it can be expanded to, instead of 3 sessions, you go 6 and you add in recycling, building deconstruction, or something else.
I would add to that is that I think it might be a good idea, like the way we did with the EV fair becoming a living electric fair. It might be a good idea to partner with some other community organizations like Greentown, or maybe others as well, to extend our dollar amount, how far that goes, as well as getting some more bandwidth for someone else to help with bringing out. So maybe that's a good suggestion, to see if we have the 3 that whatever you'll tell us about that are lined up, but maybe if you want to extend it, we could partner with someone else and they can do the legwork with arranging the series, the speakers, etc. It would be some cool funding.
I really like the idea of getting someone who's knowledgeable in the area, because they have connections beyond that we don't know. And I think what you want to do is really get engaging speakers. And and now we have this great facility here that I think you could even get more than what we could get in the little orchard room there in the library.
Yeah,
That's pretty true.
so that's something that we can look into next year. Because we've already kind of sorted out this year, for the speaker series, and because staff is limited, on time, someone who can comprehensively do all of everything for us.
So, I mean, may I interrupt? I think we're going off topic
Yeah.
from building electrification, sorry, I added to that. Maybe we come
So yeah,
back.
that the update is, that we are moving forward with what the commission approved last meeting, as we discussed it, of the building electrification speaker series. And we will be posting up to 3. The timeline is not decided yet. Hopefully the first one would be in the fall. And the topics I think the working pair provided some topics already. But yeah. And the second update is, yes, we are purchasing the induction cooktops. Unfortunately, the library said they don't have capacity to do a loaner program. So we're going to purchase them and figure out if there will be a program, or if we're just going to use those for giveaways. We are limited on space. So unfortunately, Nick said no to the cookware. So those will all need to be done this month. So it's like not much room for. But yes, but I think that's a win, and those are wins, and
We'll take them.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, moving on.
Can I
Oh,
sorry guys. I would like to, I'm gonna ask a question. How are we feeling about the variances as an incentive mechanism? I know we discussed that before, and there were mixed reactions to that, namely because of the environmental trade-offs of increased square footage of built environment versus methane reduction overall. So, and maybe your answers, I'll know it when I see it and propose something, and then I'll respond, which would be fair enough. But anyone have a thought on this before we move on?
Yeah, that's my strongest pushback on that idea. And so I just want to see evidence of, or some numbers to what impact we might expect, just to make sure that we are thinking about that holistically. Yeah.
I guess my comment is I'd apply variances or zoning variances or building variances. I'd approach those very cautiously. I think you'd be better off focusing on something that's more directly identifiable by no permit fee, or no permit fee required for an electrification project, you know, or something like that, that's more clearly defined. I think you get a lot of gamesmanship when you get architects designing a house and how they interpret things. You know, and then you have to revise it again and again. So all I'm saying is I'm not a no. I would be very cautious on that.
Yeah.
And I would have some significant questions.
I would add, I think data on the variances, and maybe the city has experience on some commercial stuff, which they do give variances for different things. What I would add is that, fast tracking electrical permits, or permits for, remodels or new construction that is all electric versus gas, I think that would be also a very useful thing.
Yeah, I think that wasn't actually mentioned to Veronica, in that meeting. So,
Yeah, we were kind of like,
her.
when we were discussing this, a bit unsure whether that was seen as a problem in general. So the feedback that I got was, hey, actually the process is pretty streamlined right now. You know, it's online. It's maybe not instantaneous, but it's not really a barrier. But I take your feedback, Rashina, and I'll discuss it with Tom, and we'll have another look at that.
Some recent experience.
I would add one other thing, and that's in scheduling of inspections.
Yeah,
You know, it's
fast tracking. whatever.
inspection is 5-6 weeks. And I know the building department's taking things in queues, but if we can expedite the permit and we expedite the inspections,
A good idea. So,
because people are waiting for their rebates. They can't apply for the rebate until they have the signed off permit. Or they can apply and they get a reservation, but they can't process until you have the signed off permit.
But my understanding from the presentation is that the owner pays what is net out. The rebate means that they only pay what's really need to come out from their own money. So all that, you know, rebate, they wouldn't be charged for that amount. That's why it's like 2,500, or else it would be 5,000, right?
That's if you use the full service
right, yeah.
that's in trial. If you go through the normal process, you pay out the money.
Okay, if it's
and
not in the full
then you're
service.
waiting.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And don't you need an inspection to move in as well sometimes?
Yes, you need,
Yeah.
you need a signed off permit to be able to finalize your application or finalize your request for the money. And then
Yeah.
Valley Clean Energy is pretty quick, 2 weeks or so from the time you have all that documentation into when you receive your check.
Great, helpful feedback. Thank you.
All right, now can we move on? All right, so I have a very brief update on transportation. In that I'm currently researching what different cities have in terms of shared mobility options, like, you know, Mountain View has this community shuttle, Palo Alto has something, and so I'm trying to put together that combination. And then Chloe, you know, guiding this, Chloe, who spoke earlier, on getting some survey information that she wants to do, and then maybe make that something relevant information that we could use. The question I would pose is if anybody has any other ideas to promote shared mobility. Let me know. And shared mobility being either carpooling or taking a bus or taking a shuttle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about the bus all the time, and that's another possible thing that I would write about. You know, I think the benefits aren't quite there to the extent that they should be, where, you know, sometimes I'm the only person on the bus, and it's like,
Mhm,
we're not getting that shared mobility
mhm,
benefit, so.
mhm. Wow. And they, huge bus with you as the single passenger? Wow.
Yeah, it happens all the time when we go through it, so, you know, trying to think about dumb stuff like a buddy system, sort of like trying to.
Is it because the time of the day, maybe commuting time, there will be more people?
Or these are paid, so you have to pay to get on?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 250 for the BPA bus, but, you know,
Convenience.
Yeah, I mean, and how often it runs or where it runs, where it goes to.
yeah, and
Like you
I
have to
think,
walk.
and yeah, I would say raising awareness too of the fact that right now we have sometimes hour-long cycles between buses stops for certain things. And that's, so that, I mean, that's part of the reason that we're seeing, I think, right, because I've certainly encountered people who have been so frustrated from just barely missing a bus that they, you know, they'll find some other way to go. So I think addressing that issue, would
Which
go,
is what our Complete Streets Commission
yeah,
is essentially, I think. That's what the Complete Streets is working on, right? Like how to make sure that all users, whether you're pedestrian or bicyclist or public transportation, is like conveniently being able to travel on a road, right? Isn't that?
I
What a
don't know
complete
that
street
they're
is.
well, I don't know that they're looking at buses, I think there's a lot of discussion about safety.
Hmm. I think, yeah, that is one big aspect of it, but maybe my understanding of a complete street is accurate. I
Yeah,
have an idea of just increasing mobility, in a way that we can control as a city. Because, you know, getting more bus lines and more bus routes and all that stuff is really hard, but having, like, those bikes or the scooters that you can rent, like at the station and more around town, so that if you have to walk far to a station or something like that, or go to a station that might have more, or stop that might have more, times or something like that, like you can just hop on one of those shared, um, scooters and get there easier without a car.
shuttles, to and from stations,
Yeah.
or finding, yeah, connecting with Mountain View, so other neighboring cities, existing community shuttles, maybe have a community shuttle here. To those.
Yeah, you mean like the workers Mountain View?
Yeah.
Because they've already have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they, you know, they go around the world, they service the stations there, but.
Yeah.
They come up to, close to El Camino. This with some, so they could close the loop in terms of getting from B to C.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's the Caltrans and stop in Mountain View, right, too.
There's
Yes.
two
Yeah,
stops, yeah.
Like someone who maybe works in Los Altos and wants to use public transportation, or lives in San Jose, commutes to Los Altos, wants to use like Caltrains or something, it'd be really hard to get, you know, from Caltrains to. We have to take a bus and then. Yeah, like there's so many,
Yeah, you could
pieces.
You could bring a bike on, it takes 20, 30 minutes to get to
Mhm.
different parts of Los Altos. Which some people do. But yeah, it's hard to, there was very little incentive to try to use public transport.
Yeah. That's it.
Any other suggestions? I promise to come back with a more comprehensive update in the future. All right, moving on, commissioners' reports and comments. So I wanna report out on last night's council meeting, just one thing, maybe Tanya, you could share that. I don't know if anybody else has seen that one.
I heard the call.
part of,
Huh?
I've watched part of.
Okay. So, the big news, which, is that, there is a budget. There's a budget, we have money. And I think the details are on the slide, but, there you go. Yeah, so I just took a screenshot of what's in there. So we had asked for money for the urban forest master plan as our first priority. And then some money for, rebates for electrification, and I'm not quite sure what the reach code cost effectiveness study is. Maybe we'll get some more guidance from Nick, or do you know, Tanya?
No,
So it's electrification in some way, so,
I think it's for, yeah, if we were to adopt reach codes, we do our own cost effectiveness study.
okay. So there was a comment from Councilmember Meadows, on the urban forest master plan that, it may not be the right time because we're waiting for guidance on fire prevention. Things, but it was on the budget, so I'm sure there had been discussion before that, and the budget was passed unanimously, so she can go before them. So that's, something to take, especially for the urban forest, master, and ecosystem working there.
Great.
I just think about, and this is money that will, run from fiscal year to fiscal year, so it'll be whatever, 25 to 26. And I think the work plan lists what it's for. Some of it is for the analysis work, canopy analysis, other ecosystem health analysis, and then some of it is we're starting the master plan. It's not, so I think that the money asked for this year was not the total money for the master plan, so hopefully there is more money next year
Yeah,
to complete the master plan. So
I hope that was clear to them with how it was.
I did explain it to you.
Yeah,
Because, the total amount was a little bit more than that. So that's my big takeaway from.
And we can't have any discussions right now, just.
Okay,
quick-
yeah, sorry.
No, I'm
Okay.
seeing God.
No,
right in
I was
there.
I'm just trying to, was there any can I ask, was there any explanation on the headers, what they meant? Because I don't see the thing that you were talking about, or we were talking about here, the speaker series. How that
This
falls
year's,
under
that's
that.
from last year's budget. It's already budgeted for. This is for coming budget, coming year.
So that was in last year's budget. So we don't have to complete the work before June 30th.
We are working on the.
Maybe we wait for Tanya's update
Oh,
for that,
Okay.
so that, yeah. Okay, so, and then any other update from my end, I think that's, I don't know if that was my assigned council meeting. To any others. Anybody else, reports from council meetings?
I was, because I was doing a schedule, I signed up, I think I was responsible.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
But
Sorry.
you went already. I guess maybe because I was.
No,
responsible with-
I just wanted
I
to
think
mention it because.
what
it was part of the
really
work plan.
matters to our environmental is, they amend the general plan with the safety element. So that now is like a standalone. And obviously, I think that they have last year, they actually had public education outreach. And so the top safety concern from our community residents are climate change, power failure, drought, and extreme heat. So I think that, many of the things that we're working on can help remedy some of these things. One of the things that they talk about is for the natural environment, hazard element, they revised to just noise and air quality. Those are the two things that they put in this natural hazard elements that we need to pay attention to. What else? And the key goals and policy that they will be making from this is reduce the hazard risk that means wildfire and seismic or flood. And plan for the city needs to take action when there's a disaster happen, say it's a wildfire or there's a earthquake or things like that. Or massive power failure comes, especially carrying facilities in North City. And also people ask for to maintain emergency services, when things happen like that. So those are the area I think.
No, the council made some comment about wanting to make sure that seniors that don't have phones would have some notifications, so that.
Right, yeah, that's right. So they asked for senior commission to work on that because they may not see alert from their cell phone.
Mhm.
I think like today, I think it was like around 2 o'clock, I got an alert, Los Altos Hills somewhere. Page Mill Road and another, I think it's near the country club area. There's a fire crew over there. I don't know the nature, is it a wildfire or it's a house?
Mhm.
So, yeah. Yeah, in case, the senior that they're not on the cell phone alert, there's a way to communicate with them, they're aware.
Do we have any other? Should we pull up our list?
Any other updates from council meetings? No, okay, so then now it's roundtable updates. Anyone like to give any progress updates on their projects or any other updates?
Call you want to talk about?
I think so, yeah, we talked with Stephanie Williams with the city about the tree protection ordinance to get understanding of how that's going. So we got some info about what's feasible if we hired somebody to look at the data on that. And then, yeah, beyond that, I tried to make contact with the ecologist consultant to understand, what's feasible with how much money, but that got delayed. So next meeting, I will hopefully be able to share what I learned from that. And then other than that, we share with Tanya goals and objectives, and hopefully we can agendize that for future meeting. Go over that. Anything else?
No, I
Okay.
think you covered it,
Okay.
yeah. I think August, right? Right now we have budget. We can start making plans, yeah.
Jinx. Colin, do you have anything else? I thought I read this. Okay. So.
Oh, okay. Yes, so I gave the update about the electrification, projects. Sorry. The SVC updates. Yeah.
Well, there's a question that Tom was asking, so maybe put it to you have an update. What was that?
No, that was, I think we covered that on the speaker series. Regarding the electrification, so I don't think there's anything more to that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So the budget that was left over from last year, is that the update?
Yep, that was the update. So those are the projects that we're working on. The other update I had was about funding for the MSC EV chargers. So, I can kind of, summarize for Commissioner Nee. We've been working on like a project to get EV chargers at the municipal services yard, where, a lot of things happen there, but, we have the gas pump where city staff, fill up their cars with gas there, and so, a lot of the city, cars are parked there. So we worked with SBCE through their technical assistance program, and they analyzed our fleet, and then they analyzed what, how many chargers we would need to charge that fleet if we were fully to electrify, because we have the goal in the cap to do that to city fleet. And then, we applied for the PG&E EV Fleets program so that they can provide some funding towards, a new dedicated service to those chargers. And so that project is moving forward, and, we requested funding last night, or was it last night? Yes, last night, to actually do the work, for the chargers. So hopefully that construction work will get started, in fiscal year 25-26.
Time of the planning has been done, so this is actually the construction, or
That's money for the construction, so I kind of got the project up to the point so that they can go out to bid for a contractor for construction using those free assistance programs, that SVC provided. So they basically provided, because I'm not an engineer, obviously, I'm not a special projects manager or CAP manager, which is normally who would do that, but, with SVCE's help, I was able to kind of, work with their consultant and PG&E to get like all that, the electrical designs ready and stuff, so that now the special projects manager, can go out to bid and manage that project. So that's a big goal in our cap, to get those chargers, and, and under municipal operations to kind of electrify our fleet, and so that kind of positions us to do that. We already have, I think, 5 EVs right now. And I think they just charge using the chargers at the community center, because they're Parks and Rec vehicles and PD vehicles. And PD has, a portable EV charger there that the director of parks kind of set up. So, things are moving along in that area. And that's another win.
Thank you. All right, potential future agenda items. I have one, which is, with the general outreach, the outreach plan, back on the future items.
I think we're gonna,
And specifically,
present people about, proposed urban forests and ecosystem. plan
Goals and
at this meeting. Yeah,
Goals and objectives for the RFP
yeah,
to present that.
yeah, go to objectives.
Yeah, so, okay, we have. So all of these are in Korea. So general outreach.
I would like to come back with a transportation discussion, what's up?
oh,
But yeah, so let me just finish my list of transportation update as well as, deconstruction update. As a future. So
Not on these. So
not
both,
like necessarily next week.
for both of those.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's. And then what I'll be having for months.
Anything?
Sorry,
Sean, we didn't?
oh, the one that I have is, can we get information on what those budget line items need for the coming year? What was anticipated, what they include? Are we supposed to be working or assisting on any of that?
Those
By the-
budget line items came directly from the cap, except for the reach codes. I mean, those budget line items came directly from the 2020, this year's work plan. So, except for the reach code one.
Well, I trying to get an understanding of what our bandwidth in those headers are. A discussion on the budget item, the budget headers that were used, what they are, and what's envisioned that can be encompassed within them.
Yeah, so I think, future agenda item would be budget discussion, 2025, 26.
I guess I'm not understanding what the, because those budget items are for what the commission asked for in the
Right.
plan. So
The
what would
discussion
be,
would be what specifically would we do or could we do? Cause the budget items were ballpark number for a big, group of things. But how we wanna lay that out, or maybe that's a discussion for each working pair.
yeah, that would be the discussion for the working plan
Okay.
to now go forward and, well, that's gonna come from the recommendations from the building electrification group. Your hand raised.
So
You
let me
could just always just also just jump in, as if you were here.
Oh, we know you. I just wanna say that, it would be good to have a budget, maybe clarification or something as a future agenda item, so that we have information that we wanna discuss, then it's there. To pull in.
Of the three items, a couple of them were two of, okay, for what we asked for. Yeah, so like for the plan, that's pretty self-evident.
Mhm.
I'm trying not to avoid discussion. The rebates. I think Colin and his working pair with what I would suggest is a little bit more information as to what that could potentially include, and then the middle item, is sort of a mystery. What the.
I have a
city-
suggestion because I had the same thought, Don. I think as it relates to the building electrification working pair, we could reach out to Tanya directly for clarification on that line item. I assume that would be a good next step. And then, as Tanya kind of pointed out, we will have a set of recommendations that we'll be presenting to the commission, hopefully in August, for discussion. So that would be obviously input for those recommendations.
Well, maybe
The other-
maybe the second item. Tanya,
So are you
maybe another.
specifically wanna know about the second item, because that wasn't coming from the commission work plan, is
Yeah,
that the
but maybe
question?
that's, maybe to hone in on the specific question, since
Yeah, I
two are
think,
gonna be dealt with by our
Right,
working
working
pairs. It's really sort of a little more explanation on the middle item.
okay.
And then are we voting on these things?
One
When you have
second,
them all?
can we, so the budget estimate to encourage electrification through city-sponsored incentives, that is what that 75,000 is for on the plan, that is directly coming from the commission. And then the 200,000 is for pulling up the work plan. But yeah, clarification on the reach code cost and effectiveness study is, we can get clarification on that, and so the 200,000 research and analysis for budget estimate of 150K canopy now, so I think everyone should go back and look at this. And that's what that money was budgeted for, directly from the commission's work plan. And then I can go to Nick and ask him for clarification on the reach code But based on what the title means, I think that's if we decide to go for reach codes, then we would be paying for our own cost effectiveness study. So,
Well, yeah, so the ask is just maybe we limit it. We have our working pairs working on two of them, and they should ask questions about or make suggestions on how to use that. And then the question is the intent or just some more explanation on it? Should we be what's anticipated there?
for the reach code, yeah.
I mean, so that's also something that John's working on as an independent. One of the things are working, is it?
Well, it's sort of on the back burner.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's, yeah, we can just put it on the agenda, and then if we find out that there's not.
Or maybe there's
we
no
find out
need
that
for
there's- yeah, it
yes.
doesn't need to be an item, not agenda.
yeah. Okay, so we have general outreach, urban forest, transportation, deconstruction. Reach code, cost effectiveness. Budget line item. Any others?
Yeah, I mean, there was also the building electrification working pair discussion. I aligned with Tom that by then we would have something to present back and discuss. It was a little more substantive than discussion today.
Okay, do you think that's gonna come back in August, or do you just want to put it down for a future meeting?
Yeah, let's sign us up for August.
It can change. I want to just kind of start putting it into.
I don't want to miss the opportunity, so let's say August, and we'll work towards it.
Any other?
Maybe we can list it and then we can vote on it. It's work plan status check.
That's already on the. It's already on there.
Okay.
Let me double check the. Work plan updates. And then if in commission, then I got one request to be on from someone to be on the agenda, to propose an agenda item to the commission, so, Carl, not you, Carl Dance, is volunteers with several climate policy advocacy groups. And he would like to request to be on an agenda for sorry. To provide a brief overview of what carbon removal is, the current set of capabilities and companies working in this area, and how Los Altos can meaningfully participate.
He wants to speak.
Yes. Okay. He wants to speak on carbon removal and what we can repeat it. If that's helpful. So the agenda item would be on carbon removal, the current set of capabilities and companies. It would be a presentation on this, the current set of capabilities of companies working in the area and how Los Altos can participate. So he wants to come present about that. Okay.
is he presenting as an individual for information, or does he have a, an interest from someone? I guess I'm not interested in listening to somebody with a sales pitch. And I think before we say yes, we have to really make sure that
Check on who he is.
you know, what he's really gonna do. I suggest maybe somebody sound him out a little bit before we say yay or nay.
Yeah, so I asked him, you know, who he's with and what's his role, and he said he volunteers with several climate policy groups, and the most relevant one is the Open Air Collective. And I think it is something along the lines of like being like, this is kind of some, since he said that, you know, there's people, there's companies doing this in the area. It sounds like it would be something that Los Altos would have to pay into. But I can vet it more further if that's what the commission desires.
Unless there's 3 or more people who want it specifically as a future agenda item.
Yeah, so
Right,
yeah,
if there's 3 people who want it, who agree to it, then we put it there, right?
Yep. Based on the information, yeah, that I gave you today, you could vote on it.
I would personally need more information. A synopsis of what they want to talk about.
Mhm.
We can evaluate it with this, and that's my take. Anybody
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, I agree.
More information.
Yeah, more information about any potential commercial links or
Okay.
interests that the speaker might have.
Okay. And as far as the other agenda items. General outreach, urban forest, transportation, deconstruction, reach code of cost effectiveness, and building electrification. I'm gonna have to do an individual vote. So Commissioner Nee?
Are we doing yes to everything, or?
Yes to all of those, yeah.
Yes.
Commissioner Reading,
Okay.
Vice Chair Van Race,
Yes.
Commissioner Wu,
Yes.
Chairman Knight.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, are we done? Anything else? Yay, meeting adjourned.
So this, in town,
Meeting adjourned.
and I gotta